Shalom, giving all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham, Ruach HaKodesh. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, and the elders at Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations, as always, to the elect. News and prophecy, where we link the things that are happening worldwide, as well as here in Babylon the Great, linking these things to the Holy Scriptures. Given the faith, we elect the remnant of Yahweh Bashim Yahshua understanding of these things, ultimately giving you assurance that all of these things that are happening are via biblical prophecy and fulfilling the will of Yahweh Bashim Yahshua, as sometimes things can be, seem convoluted and all over the place, and it's hard to keep up, right? Well, ultimately we have a medium, we have, all right, the Holy Scriptures to return to and ultimately give you an understanding through the Holy Spirit as to why these things are happening, right? Because all of these things that are happening are fulfilling what the prophets of old spoke as they were moved by the Holy Spirit, right? We're going to start here in the book of 2 Peter's, the first chapter and the 20th verse. Above all, we're reading in NLT, above all, you must realize that no prophecy in Scripture ever came from the prophet's own understanding or from human initiative. No, those prophets were moved by the Holy Spirit, and they spake from the Most High. All right? So the prophets of old, as they wrote these visions down, and a great example is the book of Habakkuk. We always bring this out. Okay? It says here in Habakkuk 2:2, the Lord said unto me, write my answer plain on tablets, so that the runner can carry the correct message to others. Okay? This vision is for a future time. It describes the end, and it will be fulfilled. If it seems slow in coming, right, wait patiently. Showing you Habakkuk is here. It says, for it will surely take place. It will not be delayed. Okay? So the vision is yet for an appointed time, right? But it says here, the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain upon tables, right? For the vision is for a future time. Okay? For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. So at the end it shall speak, and we're witnessing many effects tied to biblical prophecy, man. As we see our enemy, as you see here in Habakkuk 2:4, look at the proud. They trust in themselves, and their lives are crooked. But the righteous or the just will live by faith. See? And things are getting ready to get, all right, take a turn left as they establish their NWO, the image of the beast. All right, has now gone technical. And as we are watching these devils meet here in Davos, Switzerland, which we gave you I did a video the other day going into some things that we're talking about. In today's lesson, we'll talk about a few more things, basically tying to end time prophecy. The beast will eventually turn on a whore, and everything that we see happening are moves being made to fulfill all of the visions that our forefathers wrote down, and they made it plain so that ultimately we can carry the correct message in these latter days to you brothers and sincere sisters, you sincere brothers and sisters who are listening, being fed. All right, the sheep has to be fed. Okay, and this is our job, as the Lord told Peter, feed my sheep. Okay, and there's so much happening. Okay, and again, these things could sometimes confuse you. You can look in the news one day, you see, something like this. To give you an example, see here. One day you can see, the Trump warns 8 European countries will be charged with a 10% tariff for opposing U.S. control of Greenland. And the next day, you can see Trump drops the tariff, which a lot of this is political theater. Okay, but at the same time, it is fulfilling prophecy. These devils are all over the place, and basically, they're destroying the current world order to bring about the new. All right, it's clear as day. But as they go into this NWO, they will not agree. They will fight as they always have, and ultimately, World War III will break out, and the Lord is going to send His only begotten Son to deliver His elect. All right, but clearly the elites, as this article says here, which we brought out a portion of this, they are openly admitting to orchestrating the future. All right, and this is basically what they're doing. They're setting up the NWO, and we'll get into a few things as we look at, this Davos situation. Since it's a little late, I just typed in here, what are some key points that have happened so far at the WEF, which is the World Economic Forum, where these world leaders are coming together to try to get on the same page as pertaining to how, they're going to govern their countries. All right. And basically setting up the MOTB infrastructure, digital IDs. The MOTB itself is being discussed. Okay. We are living in those perilous times because as they move forward with this plan, okay, ultimately the powers that be are going to make a move on free speech, and as this technocracy is set up, AI will be used to identify offenders. All right, as we see, there's another one. Yeah, this I was looking at this. Australia, which is the breeding ground for the NWO, one of the breeding grounds where, the people are less, armed. So a lot of what they are going to try to move forward, we saw that in during the COVID. They do a lot of what they plan on doing in other countries, even here in the West. They start here in Australia, but they're passing a bill authorizing police to arrest citizens who post misinformation online. So things are getting ready to be tight, all right, as we move forward, all right, but the Lord will be with His elect, marvel not, all right, if, certain brothers are rolled on in the near future, accused of, treason and, domestic terror, all right, these are the type of things that are coming down the pipe, all right, and ultimately the Lord is going to be with His remnant, no matter what. Okay, and he may take you through, some straight things, all right, but the end result is salvation for us. All right, so the devil is getting ready to come down with great wrath. However, he's going to run into so many issues, it don't really matter. Okay, it doesn't even matter. This devil is all over the place. He's tacky. Um, but what I did is I just typed in here, what are some key points that have happened so far at the World Economic Forum, and some tensions. And it pretty much gives some articles, as you can see here. NATO allies escalate warnings over Trump's aggression. And this is why Trump, kind of did away with the threat of putting tariffs on particular EU countries. Okay. And with certain NATO, with NATO and EU, certain NATO and EU countries, because there was a kickback over his, plan to just take Greenland. All right. And why does he want Greenland? Of course, resources, but we know that will give him a strategic positioning, on dealing with Russia. We know Russia at some point, tried to strike some deals with the minerals over there. So basically, we're just looking at the devil fight over resource, all right, and strategic positionings of lands, all right, where he can control things. And basically, we know they need resources for their NWO. Greenland is full of resources. The earth is full of resources, all right? And this devil is not going to stop until ultimately he just destroys himself. And this is where he's on a path to, as we know the scripture says here in the book of Revelation, the 17th chapter. Okay, let's just get it real quick. Revelation 17 and 11. And the beast that was and is not, he is even the eighth, and is of the seven, and goeth into perdition. All right. And the seven, all right, the Greeks, the Romans, Germania Major, Germania Minor, Spanish, the French, and the British. The British is the seventh. America, all right, is of the seventh. All right, he's of that British Empire. Right, out of the British came the 13 United Colonies, and it became the 13 colonies became the 50 United States. And the goal is that he goes into perdition. That's ultimately the future of this, thing called Babylon. But this whole beast system is ultimately getting ready to be broken up. But America is getting ready to go into perdition. That is the end game prophetically for this place. Okay, and it says the beast that was and is not, because Rome was ruling at the time he received this vision. All right, but there will be a point in the future that the Western Roman Empire will fall. All right, but it would come back into fruition through the Renaissance. Okay, the Renaissance period brought back the energy of the Greco-Roman Empire into the earth, and all of these, European, systems, and all of these kingdoms that are of the seven, they all right, are rooted in the authority of Rome. That's what we're witnessing. But now Rome has been, blessed with, the a sword that is impeccable, technology, the ability to do miracles on the left hand side, on levels that ancient tyrants haven't. So they're filling themselves so much that they are rubbing their own allies the wrong way. You see? And as you read this chapter, speaking of this beast system, right? Verse 12, it says, "In the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings, which have received no kingdom as of yet." See? So basically, they're vassals. All right. When you look at the European Union, they are like vassals to, all right, America, just like you had vassals to the ancient Roman Empire. Okay. And we always go into it, and we have lessons going into this whole chapter. But receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. All right. I believe that's called the Treaty of Rome. Okay. And remember, after World War II, all of these nations came together, all right, to basically make peace amongst one another. All right. And there has not been peace. As you see here, these have one mind and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. So they've had one mind for the purpose of strengthening Babylon's dominance. Okay. When you look at what Babylon is able to do worldwide with taking down nations and waging war, just know the EU and NATO has assisted them. That is the purpose of having vassals, right? Meaning they fight for you. So they've had one mind and have given their strength and power unto this beast system, which we are living in a time where prophetically the beast is going to hate the whore. Okay? As you keep reading, right? These shall make war with the Lamb. And when Yahushua returns, all of these European countries and all of these countries are going to fight Yahushua. And they're going to lose. But as you read here in verse 15, and he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth, which the whore represents America, the whore rides the beast, right, in this chapter. A scarlet colored beast. Scarlet is a derivative of red. This is speaking of Esau, Edom's power structure in the end times, which is getting ready to be destroyed. It says, the waters which thou sawest where the whore sitteth are people and multitudes and nations and tongues. And we're witnessing Babylon the Great, which has dominated trade, which has dominated everything and been at the forefront of, all right, this confederacy. All right, we're witnessing a time where now these nations are growing, are not fond of her. See, and as we see here, in the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn it with fire. See, the EU, the European nations, are going to align with Russia and China, okay, and operate in a way, all right, as America flaunts itself and shows itself to be, proud and arrogant and stout, all right, moves are getting ready to be made where they're going to side, all right, with the enemies of America and shoot missiles on her. For God hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of the Most High shall be fulfilled. See that? And the woman which thou sawest is that great city, which is Babylon, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. So Babylon has reigned over the kings of the earth. All right. And even when you're looking at a lot of what's happening here at Davos, you can clearly see that America is the top dog. All right. And Trump showed up lying, just doing his usual. All right. But the Lord had him to fall back on these tariffs. Okay. Trump warns 8 European countries will be charged a 10% tariff, letting you know that he's the top dog. The fact that even though it didn't happen, the fact that he's able to even say it lets you know that he's in control. All right. But after, they met in Davos, as we're going to show you a few of these things, he dropped the tariff. It says he won't use force to take Greenland, but he still, all right, has a mind to take it. You see, which, as we go here, all right, the dominant story of what has been talked about so far at this Davos, which again means son of David, ironically. Okay, and this is a high place. Okay, where the heathen meet to sacrifice to their gods and do all kind of wickedness. All right, and throw up enchantments. Scriptures say thou art wearied in the multitude of thy counsels, and this is just one of those counsels. Okay, because as the scriptures say, he shall not feel quietness in his belly. Let's get that. Okay, let's get that. He shall not feel quietness in his belly. Let's see, I know it's in the book of Job, right? Job 20 and 18. That which he labored for shall he restore, and he shall not swallow it down. He think he's getting ready to swallow down everything. According to his substance shall the restitution be. He shall not rejoice therein. And this is ultimately what he's trying. He's planning to just go and set up this third world war and basically bring in this NWO and chip everybody. It says, because thou hast oppressed and forsaken the poor, because he have violently taken away a house which he builded not. This is what he's done worldwide. Surely he shall not feel quietness in his belly. He shall not save of that which he desired. See that? He shall not feel quietness in his belly. This is why he's meeting so much. Okay? And U.S. Donald Trump's appearance at Davos has been the central flashpoint. His look is more stout than his fellows, so the camera's all on him. And what you see on camera is just the inkling of what's really being discussed. But we know prophetically, this is why we got the scriptures to be the measure. It says his remarks and policies are dominating the summit's political atmosphere. Trump reiterated a push to negotiate U.S. control and ownership of Greenland. Just out of nowhere, Greenland is just the talk of the all right, because they're going into war, and they need those resources. And there's all kind of other reasonings for it, because that's the strategic positioning, okay, for America over Russia. It says framing it as a strategic, all right, for Arctic security, though he ruled out military force. All right, so he was talking about bringing military force, and then the European countries were like, well, shit, we go have to bring military force. All right, and it ain't time for that yet, but we know, we just read prophetically that's going to happen. Okay, it says he initiated he initially threatened tariffs on several European countries tied to his dispute, which sparked sharp rebukes from EU leaders. You see that? So the tension is there. They are a house divided. Okay, Mark 3 and 24, a kingdom divided by civil war will collapse, and they're divided, and they're going to have a war. Okay, way worse than what happened in World War II. Okay, similarly, a family splintered by feuding will fall apart. And if Satan is divided and fights against himself, how can he stand? He would never survive. And this is what we're witnessing. Okay, even when you see things kind of seem like they're going to die down, Trump ain't going to stop. Even with the Iran thing, they're not going to stop. All right, the Lord is going to put it in their spirits to do all of these things, man. Okay, after intense pushback, Trump backtracked on the tariff threat, announcing a new framework agreed with NATO allies, and markets rallied. All right, transatlantic tensions have been pronounced, with European leaders publicly criticizing U.S. pressure tactics and warnings of threats of the rules-based order. Okay? The wider effect, the debates have overshadowed many of the economic and technical discussions, and it's just like that, the Epstein list is going right. It says, and reveals serious stress in traditional Western alliances. This is what we're witnessing. Stress in Western alliances, okay? And we know in the book of Obadiah, something we always get, right? And the book of Daniel. Let's get the book of Obadiah, right? So it's beautiful to see biblical prophecy play out. And you're going to see some of the same scriptures always come out because these are the times we're in. Okay? Obadiah, verse 7, all the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee. And at the forefront of this is Amalek and Babylon the Great. Okay? They have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread, all right, which have, ultimately they're holding all of these petrodollars because, of the dominance of the dollar, which is now, all right, we're witnessing systems like BRICS, okay, being set up for nations to trade outside of the dollar. This is also why a lot of these things are happening, and why you see this Edomite here in Babylon moving the way he's moving. Okay, even what he did in Venezuela was really a show of weakness. Although it's being portrayed as a show of force and dominance, it really showed, okay, that because the real reason behind that is that Venezuela was able to trade, because with all of the tariffs that have been put, I mean, in the sanctions, Salaki, the sanctions that have been put on Russia, how are they still able to operate, all right, and seem unfazed? Well, there are other mechanisms. I believe Russia was kicked out of SWIFT. So how is their economy still doing decent with all these restrictions being put on them? Well, these other nations, Venezuela being one of them, all right, are trading with Russia in different currencies outside of the US dollar. So Russia is doing just fine, showing basically what's being shown is that, all right, as we just read, America was the king of the earth, all right, reigneth over the kings of the earth. What we're witnessing, all right, is that dominance being weakened. See? And now his own allies are looking at him like, nigga, you are out of your mind. His own allies, right, the men that were at peace with thee, have deceived thee and prevailed against thee, because they're going to align and form their own alliances and beast system to destroy Babylon. They that eat thy bread, which is your debt, have laid a wound under thee. There is no understanding in him. Okay, and when you look at some of these, all right, articles, right, we don't have to get too deep into these things. Danish MEP Anders, all right, Vistisen tells Trump to F off. Okay? During Tuesday's debate on Greenland, All right. A member of Danish People's Party accused the EU of failing to stand up to Donald Trump, renewed claims over self-governance of the Arctic island. All right, which he calls a big chunk of ice. He opened his latest speech by saying, "Dear President Trump, listen very carefully. Greenland has been a part of the Danish kingdom for 800 years. It's an integrated country. It's not for sale." He then added, "Let me put it in this in word." I think he says it here. He said, I believe this is it here.
Thank you. Urmează domnul Anders Vistisen.
Here we go.
Let me put this in words you might understand. Mr. President, fuck off.
Fuck off.
Det var næsten sådan ordene lød, da jeg for et år siden stod på den selv samme talerstol og sagde meget klart, at hvis Trump...
I'm sorry, colleague. This is against our rules. As much as you might feel, or the room might feel in this, we have clear rules about cuss words, language that is inappropriate in this room. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it is unacceptable, even if you might have strong political feelings about this.
Oh, man. Interesting times. Right? Told him to F off, pal. So they're divided, man. Esau, Edom is divided. All right. Trump tells two-faced Starmer and Macron to fix their countries. Okay. See if we can find a video on this, because I don't think it's one in here. I think here we go.
They've got to straighten out their countries. You can't, London is having a lot of problems. And if you look at Paris, got a lot of problems. They have two problems, immigration and energy. They got to stop with the windmills, and they got to go back like UK has an unbelievable asset called the North Sea. Norway uses it, makes a fortune. They have a better section of it, and they don't do it. They could straighten out their countries. And
so all you see is nothing but back and forth between these.
We've helped them for so many years. We've never gotten anything, except we pay for NATO. And we paid for many years until I came along. We paid for, in my opinion, 100% of NATO because they weren't paying their bills. And all we're asking for is to get Greenland, including right title and ownership, because you need the ownership to defend it. You can't defend it on a lease. Number one, legally, it's not defensible that way, totally. And number two, psychologically, who the hell wants to defend a license agreement or a lease, which is a large piece of ice in the middle of the ocean where...
He called the people's country a large piece of ice. And I've been seeing videos of people over there in Greenland saying, nah, we don't want nothing to do with y'all. All right, we don't want the filth of the West being brought. Again, the beast is hating the whore, man. All right, and as you can see, this man's pride is on 100.
If there is a war, much of the action will take place on that piece of ice. Think of it. Those missiles would be flying right over the center of that piece of ice. All we want from Denmark for national and international security and to keep our very energetic and dangerous potential enemies at bay is this land on which we're going to build the greatest golden dome ever built. We're building a golden dome that's going to, just by its very nature, going to be defending Canada. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your prime minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. They should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements. What we did for Israel was amazing, but that's nothing compared to what we have planned for the United States, Canada, and the rest of the world. We are going to build a dome like no other. We did it for Israel. And by the way, I told Bibi, stop taking credit for the dome. That's our technology. That's our stuff.
So clearly, this prophecy is coming to pass. Daniel 7 at 20, and the 10 horns that were in his head, that represents the EU, and of the other which came up, before whom the three fell. All right, this is speaking of how America, because America was used to be at the forefront of bringing, all right, the Western Roman Empire fully back. Through America, it was all fulfilled. All right, along with its vassals, the EU and NATO was formed, and Esau has dominated. Okay, it says, even before whom three fell, that's the Spanish, the French, and the British, because this whole system will be revived. It says, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spoke very great things. Right? His science, his technology, everything we're witnessing, a mouth speaking great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. And I beheld, and the same horn made war with the saints and prevailed against him. And that was through Babylon the Great. As it says in the book of Isaiah 47, right? This clearly is talking about Babylon the Great. All right, Isaiah 47 and 6, speaking to the daughter of Babylon, I was wroth with my people, I have polluted mine inheritance, and given them into thine hand. Thou didn't show them no mercy upon the ancient, the elderly, hast thou verily heavily laid thy yoke. You didn't give a damn. And thou hast said, I shall be a lady forever, that great whore. See? So that thou did not lay these things to thine heart, neither did you think of the latter end of it. Let's read this in the NLT. Because we're looking at the latter end of all of your actions. You finna lose, Jack. You said, I will reign forever as queen of the world. You did not reflect on your actions or think about their consequences. See that? So we're witnessing this man's look be more stout than his fellows. He's talking shit to Canada.
Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not.
Donald Trump just gave a more than 1 hour speech to world leaders in Davos, Switzerland. It's usually an economic forum, but now more like a battlefield.
I watched your prime minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. They should be grateful to us.
In that roughly hour and 15-minute speech, about 20 seconds were devoted to Canada specifically. I've already played you about 12 of those seconds. Here are the remaining 8.
Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
I'm going to explain what the president of the United States was reacting to and on what level this sours an already strained relationship.
There is a strong tendency for countries to go along to get along, to accommodate, to avoid trouble, to hope that compliance will buy safety. Well, it won't. So what are our options?
The day before Trump spoke, it was Mark Carney's turn to address the room. His speech was, in effect, to frame the U.S.-led world order as irreversibly ruptured. And he made this point with a story.
Every morning, the shopkeeper places a sign in his window. Workers of the world unite. He doesn't believe it. No one does. But he places the sign anyway to avoid trouble, to signal compliance, to get along.
This is a parable from an essay written by Václav Havel almost 50 years ago, answering how communism sustains itself. The analogy here, of course, being with how the world placates Donald Trump.
And because every shopkeeper on every street does the same, the system persists. Not through violence alone, but through the participation of ordinary people in rituals they privately know to be false. Friends, it is time for companies and countries to take their signs down.
Now, this is a clever bit of politics in the sense that, like many grand speeches touching on prickly subjects, it's both direct and vague at the same time. And maybe this wouldn't have been so provocative if not for two things. First, that Carney's entire speech was about this, about a strategic pivot away from America. But the second
A strategic pivot away from America.
thing, he named America explicitly.
This fiction was useful. An American hegemony in particular helped provide public goods, open sea lanes, a stable financial system, collective security, and support for frameworks for resolving disputes. This bargain no longer works.
What we have to do is what he called sort of a principled pragmatism, being realistic, very hard-nosed about where we have interests and arranging our relations, our foreign relations on that basis. It's fascinating to me and very revealing that the Prime Minister is spelling this out as a statement of Canadian foreign policy.
Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. You cannot live within the lie of mutual benefit through integration when integration...
Crazy. I just clicked on these last few videos I just clicked on them. But it's breaking it down.
becomes the source of your subordination.
Donald Trump, of course, was listening to all of this.
After the war, we gave Greenland back to Denmark. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it. But we gave it back. But how ungrateful are they now?
This word, ungrateful, seems to keep resurfacing with Trump and his administration. In Davos, he devoted a big part of his speech to ripping into Denmark for not wanting to sell Greenland to the United States. But two things about this framing of gratitude. One is that it's more feeling than fact.
You know, we could look at more of this, but what you're witnessing is a shit show. All right, that's basically what we're witnessing. All right, and we'll get more into that, and we'll watch, you know, as these things, take place. But Canada is showing signs that it's serious about shifting away from the U.S. Okay, Canada is showing signs that it's serious about shifting away from the U.S. With the U.S. ties at their lowest point in modern history, Canada is turning to one of the only countries with which it had even worse relations, China. Okay, as we've been, talking about many of these countries as they're watching things play out, all right, are coming to the conclusion it will be easier for us to do business with China and Russia. All right, over Babylon the Great, who wants so much control and is proud. Again, we just read his look would be more stout than his fellows, man. Okay, Canada is forging a new strategic partnership with China, its second biggest trading partner. Prime Minister said during what he called a historic trip of Beijing that includes a break with the United States on tariffs, which have hit both Canadian and Chinese economies. Okay. And, we'll get more into that, but we're witnessing this system breaking up. Okay. Macron, okay, says that Europe needs more Chinese investments. Okay. And he showed up with, I believe, a black eye. Something was wrong with his eye. You know how these devils do those rituals.
China is welcome, but what we need is more Chinese foreign direct investment in Europe in some key sectors.
Yo, where are we, man? Yo, look at Esau, man.
To contribute to our growth, to transfer some technologies, and not just to export towards Europe some devices or products which sometimes don't have the same standards or are much more subsidized as the one being produced in Europe.
So there we go. So we're witnessing the disruption of the old world order as they bring you into the new. Okay? And let's get a few videos real quick. Okay? This is Douglas McGregor, Trump at Davos.
That you think you do. But having said that, a lot of people are sitting there listening and saying, well, I guess the only solution is to disengage from this bankrupt financial system that the United States controls. It's time for us to join BRICS. It's time for us to get out from under the United States. We now understand that thanks to President Trump, with one keystroke, bankers sitting in New York City can eliminate savings, can eliminate vast quantities of wealth that we have accumulated, whether we're Russians or Germans, Italians, Arabs, doesn't make any difference. If he doesn't like us, if he doesn't like what we do, if we don't agree with him, then we can be punished in all sorts of ways. So why would you want to be part of that existing financial?
He just put sanctions on you. They're tired of that shit.
System. So I think the first thing you're going to see, and I think it's well underway now, is that people are going to sell off our debt. Overnight, the Swedes sold billions and billions and billions of U.S. treasuries. We're watching as Japan prepares to sell off close to $1 trillion in U.S. debt. I think that's just the beginning of a tide that's going to sweep across us. It's going to have terrible consequences for our financial system. And when people sell those things off and they disengage from you and they decide, well, we don't really need that supply chain, we'll build another one and we'll do business elsewhere. We'll do business with China. I mean, if you're sitting in Australia and you think this could happen to you, You have many options. You don't have to be wedded to us. And I think that's really what's going to happen as a result of the current administration. People are just going to say, we don't want to end up like the Russians with $300 billion that the United States or its allies decide to steal. We don't want to end up being constantly the target of tariffs that are hurtful and harmful to our economy because the president doesn't happen to like us or what we say. I see nothing good coming out of those statements.
Well, and neither do I. You mentioned some of this, what Japan may be trying to do in the past year. China has sold off 10% of its holding of U.S. debt, some significant number of billions of dollars, and every evidence suggests that trend is going to continue on here into 2026, and that's going to have some implications there. But you mentioned that some people are finally getting tired of that. Well, one of the folks that is getting tired of that is Canada's Mark Carney, and I think that's he even considers himself a middling power, so he didn't consider himself a great power, but he's starting to stand up. That was noticed, and I'm going to show you a couple of sound bites from what he said at Davos yesterday, but Trump actually addressed Carney in his speech today.
We're building a golden dome that's going to, just by its very nature, going to be defending Canada. Canada gets a lot of freebies from us, by the way. They should be grateful also, but they're not. I watched your prime minister yesterday. He wasn't so grateful. They should be grateful to us. Canada lives because of the United States. Remember that, Mark, the next time you make your statements.
So if you think that you're keeping the world afloat, and how dare this country not recognize my greatness and be grateful for what they're doing and have the audacity to have their own way. I mean, it seems to me, Doug, and before I even show you what Carney said, what he was referring to, this idea that you're mocking and denigrating anybody who's thinking about going their own way. Do you think that's going to cow other people not to do that or make them more inclined to push back?
Well, that's obvious. I think more and more countries are going to end up migrating in the direction of BRICS. That was my point.
Who leads BRICS? Okay. Let's just ask. What country leads BRICS? Maybe China, maybe Russia. Let's see. Oh boy, internet tripping. Okay. Here isn't one single leader, but China holds significant economic weight, while Brazil held the 2025 president, so forth. But Russia's up in there. Okay. Which it comes off as a way to trade outside of the dollar, but I believe that it's a military alliance as well. Okay. So we're living in some very, very interesting times, man. Okay, in essence, while China's economic size is gives it strong influence, leadership roles and priorities shift with the rotating presidency, with countries like Brazil, Russia, and India playing key roles. So this is Ezekiel 38 in a nutshell. Okay, in a sense. Let's go back here to the drunk collar. You know this dude, he takes shots all day. Okay. He toe back. He know it's over.
The Chinese, whether you like them or not, are not inclined to impose any restrictions on the people that they lend money to or do business with. They want to be paid. They want to do business on a basis that is profitable for them as well as hopefully for the business partner. But
yep, and see, China is not trying to get involved in all of your internal affairs. They just like, whoop, let's do the business. You do you. You know, boom. America, you got to think like them. You got to be like them. You got to praise them. You got to worship them, you know. So more countries are going to start bucking up against America. As the scriptures say in the book of Joel, the 3rd chapter, let the weak say I am strong, as they prepare for war.
They're not interested in changing anybody's government. They're not interested in pushing them into a position of subordination. So I think what is happening in Canada, you're going to see elsewhere. Brazil is already with BRICS, obviously. I think we'll see more Latin American states that'll migrate in that direction. Yep. And I think Africa certainly will. And Africa is full of all the minerals and resources that the world could ever possibly want. You can fit the United States and several other countries into the continent of Africa. It's so huge. But he's not thinking in those terms. And I think, unfortunately, some of what he says goes down well with some of the MAGA base. They'd like to hear that, but then again, they're the same crowd.
Ethiopia, Libya, that's Ezekiel 38.
That is part of what I call the bombs away club. Oh, we bombed somebody yesterday. That's great. We're wonderful. We bombed them. But I think the majority of Americans are not really very impressed with that approach.
Well, and it does appear that Prime Minister Carney does seem to agree with your assessment about where things are going. And he took the very public opportunity yesterday at Davos to make this statement.
Let me be direct. We are in the midst of a rupture, not a transition. Over the past 2 decades, a series of crises in finance, health, energy, and geopolitics have laid bare the risks of extreme global integration. But more recently, great powers have begun using economic integration as weapons.
You can watch that video. It's real good. I have to finish it. I did watch the majority of this as I rode my bike today. So let's go here. In about, let's see, the internet's kind of tripping. So at about 104, this gets the point that I wanted to bring out in this video. Here we go. Let's hope the internet comes back. But let's go back here while that loads. Let's see. So pretty much so far at Davos, they discussed geo-economic confrontation and global risk focus. All right. Yada, yada, yada. Technology and AI. All right. Cooperation with AI. All right. Because AI governance is going to be important as they enter into the NWO. All right. The infrastructure for the MOTB. Okay. And again, you have certain countries who are reluctant. Just like here in the United States, you got certain states who are reluctant, all right, to enforce AI on a level, all right, that the elites want. All right. This is why Trump is saying all of the 50 United States need to agree.
Right now, because we will use nuclear weapons.
Okay. Let's see. Need to agree with the AI policies. And remember, with that big beautiful bill that was passed, which is, when you look at a lowercase b is 666, it's nothing but the man of sin at work. When you look at it, let's see here, pretty much there's bills that AI could go unchecked. All right. So basically, this man is framing mischief by a law. See? And when it's all said and done, all of these countries, all of these states are going to have to bring in that MOTB infrastructure. Okay? And AI governance. Okay? Let's see. And we'll get more into that. This reflects it says industry leaders, including BlackRock's Larry Fink, push back on fears of an AI bubble, but stress that global cooperation on AI is vital to compete with China. And they're always talking about China. We got to compete with China. And you see where China is at. All right. They treat their shit, their citizens are, under constant surveillance. They got the social credit score pretty much set up. They ready for the MOTB over there. So they want to make America like that. Remember, Klaus Schwab said, all right, China, let's look that up. Klaus, China is the model. See if it comes up. It's funny how the internet has been, yep. While Klaus Schwab, he has praised China's economic growth, reduction in contributions to, he hasn't called it the model, but rather highlighted its significant role. Somebody who said China is the model for the world we want. It's somebody who said that. Either way it goes, as we just read here, okay, they at this World Economic Forum meeting, they're calling for global cooperation on AI. Okay, and we'll get into that, in another video as we wrap this up. Let's get a few more videos though. See if this plays. Dang. Let's see.
Yeah, Patrick, too. And Colonel Wilkerson, if you do need to go, feel free. But if you want to stick around for a little while,
Thank you. Good to see you, Patrick.
All right, take care.
Take care.
Yeah, Patrick, to you, your reaction to all this.
Well, just to add to what Larry's saying there, he's talking the civilizational question. What is the modus operandi of the Western Empire, the U.S.-led, Anglo-American dominated world order, as it were? That civilizations are either building or they're wrecking or sabotaging. And what's clear now is the reason what Larry said, I think, is correct, and it's horrifying if you think about the implications of it. The arrogance, the cultural arrogance of the sort of American elites that Larry was referencing there.
Give me 1 second.
As well as the British and the European elites. So arrogant. And I think there's also a kind of, there's a deep institutionally and civilizationally in terms of the elite class, racism that goes so deep. And that justifies this hegemonic orientation whereby the system they've constructed, namely the U.S. system, the post-Bretton Woods system, is such a Ponzi scheme. And it's now coming apart. And Trump's doing all of this razzmatazz, tariff wars, making all these audacious claims, going after land grabs to find some collateral for the bankers that the U.S. is in hawk to. But nobody understands bankruptcy is better than Donald Trump and living in the red better than Donald Trump. So he is the sort of executor of the, let's say, the U.S. truly in administration, totally bankrupt as a country. And it's the goose that lays the golden egg for Uncle Sam's, or the eagle that lays the golden egg for Uncle Sam, is the U.S. dollar as a world reserve currency. And they're doing everything possible in their desperation to maintain power, is also repelling people out of the dollar. And that's making things progressively worse for the Americans. So China's building the Belt and Road Initiative. Russia's building the middle corridor. Iran is an important part of that. And the U.S. is building nothing. Europe is building nothing. They can't even maintain their own infrastructure. So instead of doing things that benefit people, not only in their own countries, but around the world, the Americans, the British, and NATO have decided that they're going to just do sabotage. So that's all they're doing, is blowing things up, hitting oil refineries, stealing, piracy on the high seas, taking tankers, oil tankers, claiming that they're enforcing sanctions, just destroying maritime law in the process, which is one of the most important international institutions, is maritime law in terms of trade and commerce and stability. And
Trump said he doesn't need international law. They're just going against the grain. They're just operating in a very, very uncouth manner. Okay, and even in that, certain of their allies are like, this is too much.
Actively doing that now. The U.S., the British, and the Europeans are just going behind the U.S. in that. They're able to do that under the clout of the United States. As individual states, there's no way they could get away with that. So they're doing it because the U.S. is blowing wind in their sails to carry those out. So wrecking, sabotaging, and disrupting and destroying. That's what Western civilization has come to. And if that's where Western empire and civilization is, I would say that it is absolutely on a rapid decline. Rapid civilizationally on a rapid decline. Because if that's your raison d'etre, is just to destroy things, then it's very dangerous too, because it can get progressively worse. And as Larry said, boys with very dangerous toys, that's the situation we have, I think, in the United States right now. And the reason I say this, and it's not hyperbolic, Danny, is because if you just listen to the rhetoric coming out of your average U.S. politician, your average NATO leader, your average U.S., the U.S. president, it doesn't inspire any confidence, because you're not hearing anything intelligent. You're not hearing any nuance. These are people that are almost holding historical knowledge with grave contempt. It's an anti-intellectualism that's dominating U.S. society, and certainly the political economy. That knowledge is not the fuel that drives the political economy. And no, it's military Keynesianism. It's unilateral, hegemonic, ultra-realism. And it's will to power, as articulated by the great 21st century intellectual giant, Stephen Miller. Will to power. I thought we binned all that in the mid-20th century. I really thought, isn't that what we defeated fascism. I remember that was the thing after World War II. And we're all like patting ourselves on the back in the U.S. We've defeated fascism. And look, we have all these great institutions. We've got stability. And once we got out of the Cold War, then these institutions still survived for a period of time. But now you're seeing the whole thing come apart. And that's the thing that actually predicated American power. It was those institutions. The U.S. gamed the UN, they gamed the WTO, they gamed the IMF, they gamed all the World Bank, and that maintained U.S. Enough cohesion in the international system. And it also coincided with the biggest a wave of prosperity globally for all of its faults. That this was really, if you look at the post-World War II era, with all of its faults, the Cold War and everything, that's maybe look back in history as the golden era, actually. And all the J.D. Vances of the world and all of these political neophytes, like the teenagers that basically just arrived in politics. He's 41 years old. And these are the people standing up making these declarations about these people were geopolitically illiterate 12 months ago. And I would still say they are today. But let's just say they picked up a few terms that they can repeat, or they have speechwriters writing speeches for this. They have no idea. When they say Europe has been ripping us off, this is a great Republican MAGA trope. It is the stupidest thing. If anybody who actually understands forensic economy, history, geopolitics, international relations, Europe's not ripping the U.S. off. The U.S. has been ripping Europe off. It's been ripping Japan off. It's been ripping the world off. It's allowed for certain people to prosper in certain industries and certain sectors in the post-World War II era, and the peace dividend, if you will, regarding Japan and Germany is a good example. But in terms of the euro dollar right now, it's the big dollar sink in Europe is worth a lot more to America than it is in the Middle East right now, which is moving east and trading with China. And that euro dollar sink in Europe is holding up and suspending the value of a worthless paper currency called the US dollar. Worthless piece of currency that's only suspended its value by the fact that there's an artificial demand that was created post Bretton Woods, that all commodities, oil and whatever, is going to be bought and sold in US dollars. Artificial demand that was created for the US dollar. That is the source of all US power. There would be no U.S. empire that pays for the U.S. military, that allows them to deficit spend $2.5 trillion per year. Imagine if every country could deficit spend $2 trillion a year, or, whatever, 200%, or whatever their debt to GDP ratio is.
He's laid it himself with thick clay. That's what the book of Habakkuk talks about. So we're at the end of this empire. We're at the end of this, and the elites are of the opinion that, as they collapse everything, they're going to bring about their NWO and chip everybody. But this was a good video. Check it out. You can see the title of it. Let's listen to it a little bit more.
Is at the moment. If every country did that, the U.S. created a system that they've gamed, and they use everybody else to maintain that Ponzi scheme. That is the genius of the U.S. dollar system. So the U.S. has been ripping the world off with the U.S. dollar. Yes, it created stability. Yes, to some degree, there had to be, at that time, a reserve currency, but they made a huge mistake. They decided to weaponize it through sanctions, through economic warfare, through currency attacks and manipulation like they carried out against Venezuela, Syria, Iran, Russia. So the fact that they've used the very thing that is the predicate of all U.S. power and clout. They've misused it, they've abused it, they've weaponized it. And these geniuses in Washington, these politicians who don't know anything about anything in terms of history, only what they've been propagandized growing up in the U.S. School system, that we won World War II, we won, it was D-Day. The Red Army was already practically in Berlin in D-Day. It was over. And who inflicted 80% of the casualties of the German Wehrmacht, the German war machine, was inflicted by the Red Army, the Soviet Union, the Russians. Not U.S., not Britain, certainly not France. So
yeah, you can check this video out. Again, book of Habakkuk goes into everything he's saying. Okay, Habakkuk chapter 2. And 6. Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe unto him that increaseth in that which is not his? How long? And him that ladeth himself with thick clay, that thick clay. All right, as we always go into, okay, is that debt, which is brought about by aligning yourself and holding dollars on reserve. I bought yet, right? Wages, weight of pledges, heavy debts. Okay. And this is how the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her. Let's get that in Revelation, the 18th chapter. Okay. And as much as they're talking, when this place falls, it's going to ruin the whole world economy. Okay. Revelation 18:9. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her and lament her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. Because this is what's coming. The true New World Order. See? And again, her own allies are going to join the enemies of the West and shoot missiles on her, starting with shooting missiles on the land of Israel, man. One more video and we'll get up out of here. All right, all hell's breaking loose. You won't believe what's happening. Okay, a lot of these Edomites are seeing where it's all going, man.
Another one here. If you look at the G7 leaders who are going to Davos this week, only one is not going. Who is it? Keir Starmer. He said he's not going to be going. This is just embarrassing for the UK that everyone else, all the big leaders are going. He's not, because he said he's too busy. So Macron's going to be there today. He's going to be giving a speech. We've already had Ursula von der Leyen's speech, which I've gone through. We won't go over what was said in the Commons. That was madness. But this is the most crazy thing. Are you ready for this? So Keir Starmer's not going, but who is going? Who's going to lead the British delegation this year? You can't make this up. It's Rachel Reeves. I mean, how on earth is she going to lead the delegation for the UK? The lady is not a leader. She's Rachel from accounts, as everyone always points out. She makes terrible decisions. She's not a negotiator or a deal maker. This is really, really bad for the UK. It really is. Next one, then. Let's have a look at a couple of other points. I told you this is one of the craziest streams you'll see. Lashing out in an online rant, the US president wrote, again, this is the Independent saying that, not me. Shockingly, our brilliant NATO ally, the United Kingdom, is currently planning to give away the island with a site of a vital US military base to Mauritius for no reason whatsoever. He added, the UK giving away extremely important land is an act of great stupidity and is another in a very long line of national security reasons why Greenland has to be acquired. Denmark and its European allies have to do the right thing. Here was what he posted. Now, there was a couple other points. Here we go. Meanwhile, he's on his way right now to the WEF. Keir Starmer will not go because there's lots of challenges on his time, the ministers have said. It's just embarrassing. I just find it embarrassing that he's not even going to turn up. Right, are you ready for this one? Are you ready for this one? Okay, don't tune out. Stay focused. This is crazy. The UK should consider expelling US forces from British bases. This was actually said. The Green Party leader advocates leaving NATO and says Britain should wean itself off its reliance on the US. This gets crazier as the story goes on. So he's actually said as well, spending less on American weapons as part of a wider dismantling of the two countries' defense alliance. Firstly, what planet does this guy live on? First of all,
see, this is prophecy being played out. He just don't know. You know?
Well, I don't know if he's okay, if you know what I mean. Why would you want to get rid of... Okay, let's put this into context if you're not a regular viewer here, firstly. The UK and a lot of European countries obviously are in a proxy war with Russia. They're with alliance with Ukraine. Okay. What has been happening is Russia's been saying, if you don't stop sending weapons and everything else, we're going to nuke you off the map. And another thing they've been saying is that it's only because you've got NATO and the US to support you that we're not doing certain things to you right now. So this guy says he wants to kick out and if he wins the next election, of course he will, he's going to kick out all the US bases, all the US troops, and we're going to stop buying US weapons. I just don't think these people get it. These people that are politicians are, I think, some of the dumbest people we have ever had in our politics.
Well, the scriptures say the king's heart is in the hand of the Lord. So they're moving to fulfill prophecy, not do what you think is best to keep the Edomite afloat and as a ruler in the earth. What this really all speaks to is prophecy at the end of the day, all right? They're not going to agree, as the scriptures talks about. The kingdom that will be in rulership before the kingdom of heaven is set up, the divine kingdom, is the revival of Rome. Okay, and it talks about here, Daniel 2:40, and the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, for as much as iron breaketh in pieces and to subdue all things, and as iron that breaketh all these shall it break in pieces and subdue. And whereas thou sawest the feet and the toes, part potter's clay and part iron, the kingdom shall be partly divided, but there shall be in it the strength of the iron, the sword. All right, for as much as thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay. So they don't agree on a lot. All right, they have the sword, but the sword's divided. Economically, they don't agree. They don't agree with, how the AI infrastructure is going to be brought in. They don't agree on a lot. Okay, they don't agree on, certain moves that Babylon wants to make. Okay, they're all over the place with their disagreement. And we just read, a divided house shall fall. Okay, Isaiah 19:2. All right, in the GNT, the Lord says, I will stir up civil war in Egypt and turn brother against brother and neighbor against neighbor. Rival cities will fight each other, and rival kings will struggle for power. See that? So we're witnessing infighting here in Babylon, and ultimately this global alliance that has dominated the earth is now being broken up as iron is not mixed with miry clay. They're not going to bind together. Okay, and as the toes of the feet were part iron and part clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly broken. So we're witnessing the breaking up of this alliance. They're not going to cleave together. Okay, whereas thou sawest iron mixed with miry clay, they shall mingle themselves with the seed of men, making these alliances, but they shall not cleave one to another, even as iron is not mixed with miry clay. So we're witnessing that, all right, with these moves. Okay, and at the forefront of it is Babylon. And pretty much it's propaganda. Everybody's figured Babylon out. Babylon's done, man. The elites are done with this thing called Babylon. Okay, and all of these moves are being made on purpose. All right, because they're getting ready to destroy the old world order to bring about the new. Okay.
An important message: don't ever underestimate Europe's ability to screw things up. Historically, as a continent, their decision making, it has been atrocious. Thankfully, President Trump, he is delivering much needed perspective. Take a look.
The explosion of prosperity and conclusion and progress that built the West did not come from our tax codes. It ultimately came from our very special culture. This is the precious inheritance that America...
And what is the culture of America? Rape, robbery, murder, hot dogs, hamburgers, which I believe they got those from other countries. Culture vultures, stealing everything. What's the true special culture of the West? Come on, man.
And Europe have in common. We share it. We have to defend that culture and rediscover the spirit that lifted the West from the depths of the Dark Ages to the pinnacle of...
You're talking about Rome.
Human achievement. We believe deeply in the bonds we share with Europe as a civilization. I want to see it do great. Europe and those countries have to do their thing. They have to get out of the culture that they've created over the last 10 years. It's horrible what they're doing to themselves. They're destroying themselves. It's beautiful, beautiful places. We want strong allies, not seriously weakened ones. We want Europe to be strong.
Europe is destroying itself from within while ignoring major threats abroad and taking America, of course, for granted. Not any longer under Donald Trump. For example, here's what the president said about Denmark and their resistance to a Greenland deal. Take a look.
In World War II, when Denmark fell to Germany after just 6 hours of fighting and was totally unable to defend either itself or Greenland. So the United States was then compelled. We did it. We felt an obligation.
So, that's that. Let's see what.
And some of those people are at the World Economic Forum. It just kicked off in Davos. This is an event, again, where billionaires and political leaders get together and they basically decide what our future is going to be. One of the big issues that came up before,
and as you can see, this is the end. This is the end thing. Prophecy. There's nothing else to talk about. Okay.
was climate change. This time, they have turned their attention to AI and this idea of globalization. And some of the things that were said may actually shock you. Let's get started with this first clip here. This is coming from the U.S. Commerce Department. Globalization has failed. This is coming from Secretary Lutnick at the WEF. Everyone, check out what he says.
Well, I think you should start at a much higher level. Okay. We are in Davos at the World Economic Forum. And the Trump administration and myself, we are here to make a very clear point. Globalization has failed the West and the United States of America. It's a failed policy. It is what the WEF has stood for, which is export, offshore, far shore, find the cheapest labor in the world, and the world is a better place for it. The fact is, it has left America behind. It has left the American workers behind. And what we are here to say is that America First is a different model, one that we encourage other countries to consider, which is that our workers come first. We can have policies that impact our workers. Sovereignty is your borders. You're entitled to have borders. You shouldn't offshore your medicine. You shouldn't offshore your semiconductors. You shouldn't offshore your entire industrial base and have it be hollowed out beneath you. You should not be dependent for that which is fundamental to your sovereignty.
So, first of all, other countries do put their workers first. For the most part, their workers, a lot of the ones that are allies with the United States, their workers have universal health care. They have paid family leave. They don't have to pay all this money to go to the hospital and have a baby. If you look at a country like France, I mean, they even get like, I guess you would call it not a nanny, but a temporary babysitter, like after they have a child, at least I think for the first 9 months. So the other countries have put their workers first. It's this country that doesn't put the workers first. But I want everyone to pay attention to what is happening here, right? You see, they have been paying attention. They've been watching what is being said on social media and also, I think, in independent media, although they probably would never admit it. They are now starting to use our jargon. They're now starting to use the same rhetoric that you're hearing many of us say, which is that we need to focus on people right here and we need to build up this country.
And it's not happening. It's all rhetoric. But we'll get into this video. I just clicked on it, so I have to watch it and get the good points out of it. But that's that, man. I just wanted to touch on a few things. Prophecy is definitely coming to pass. We're at the end of this age. The scriptures talks about Esau represents the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth, man. So here you go. Okay. Tech governance versus national strategy. That they talked about that. And I'm pretty sure as the week goes, there'll be more. So throw up prayers for the believers scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, as well as here in Babylon. It's supposed to be some type of storm coming here, ice storm or whatever coming here in Texas. So throw up prayers for us, as well as the brothers and sisters in these regions where this is supposed to come. It's supposed to be a power outage. We may or may not be out there Friday. We'll see. If not, Lord willing, we can do a live show, but they're talking about power outages that can last a week. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? But we're living in perilous times. Lord be with us. Hey, shalom.